Okay, after the other charging and fighting video, we had some other stuff we could add that we wanted to touch on, right?
Only the dumbest stuff, but yes.
This will be a shorter video, but I'm calling this Charging and Fighting 2. It's not Electric Boogaloo. It's not an Uppy Downy video. Okay, here's our lovely list. Take it away.
Okay, so there's a very weird interaction that is probably never going to get patched because it requires like a trifecta of weird situations and you can't make all the choices. Anyway, to clarify some things, a successful charge is based upon the charge roll. So with a new mission pack, it says that you can only overwatch if your opponent has made a successful charge. Again, that's based upon the roll, so they have to roll enough inches to make engagement before you're allowed to declare overwatch. This is the update with original rules for charging that creates some confusion, specifically some weird interactions, I guess, not confusion. So I declare a charge, I successfully roll high enough to make engagement range, but let's say barely. I need a 7-inch charge and I rolled a 7 or a 6. What if my opponent chooses to overwatch? That's outside my control, but let's say they do. They get some hits, they kill some models. I decide as the person getting shot what models to remove. Well, let's say I remove the models from the front, making my charge harder. You could argue there's a rule conundrum here that says, well, now that I can't make the charge move, it's an unsuccessful charge. My opponent can't overwatch, but that's not true. Arguably, the rules already clarify if the roll was long enough, it is a successful charge. With that being true, I can't make engagement range now, so I'm not allowed to move the models at all anymore. Because the idea of I didn't roll high enough, I'm not allowed to move, is kind of a separate rule of, but I couldn't make engagement range of all the, enemy units I declared, so multi-charging is where we get this clarification. I couldn't engage all of the units that I declared the charge for. It doesn't matter what I rolled. I don't get to move at all. Okay, so that part is fairly reasonable. The part that becomes weird is when you go to the fight phase and you go to select the unit to fight. Because you can, since it's successfully charged, even though it didn't move. When you select the unit to fight, it would attempt to pile in, which it presumably couldn't, because you didn't make the charge, but in theory could. I say this because let's say I'm fighting a thing, I fall back during my turn, but I have a ability or stratagem that lets me fall back and charge. Well, now that I've fallen back, I went to charge this other unit that was farther away, and I failed my charge due to overwatch / pulling models poorly. Well, now that I've done that, I go to pile in, and maybe I could pile in backwards to the thing I fell back from, and then fight that.
Oh my god. Okay.
You're right. And let's say there is... you're right. This gets absolutely goofy. The problem is you can select them to fight because they successfully charged. You don't get to move if you don't move within engagement range. If you can move within engagement range, you must. So there's a super, trifecta of dumb choices / positioning that has to happen for this to even matter. So it's because it's going to be so rare, even when you're trying to make it work, that you probably can't. I don't think they're ever going to patch it. But yes,
But it's technically possible.
Correct. It is technically possible, which is why it's a fun, goofy thing that we're just covering, because in theory it could happen. But it's very funny that I declare a charge, I roll just enough, because I'm coming out of Deep Strike, I need a 9, I roll exactly a 9, you overwatch me, I pull the wrong models. Now, I'm going to select that unit to fight, and there's nothing around me, so I can't pile in, I'm not engaging anything, I can't fight, and then I go to consolidate. Oh, there's an objective to the side of me. I could pile in sideways, or consolidate sideways onto this objective. and
Wow.
now I'm holding the objective.
You also have to roll like exactly the right number
Correct.
to go from successful to failing charge.
Correct. You have
or
to roll
successful
exactly,
to not movable to succeed charge or whatever.
right. You have to roll basically like close to minimum charge. Then your opponent has to make a choice without you to decide to overwatch. And then their rolls have to be good enough to kill enough models to make this possible. And then after all of that, there has to be another enemy unit that you didn't declare a charge on, or an objective close enough that makes selecting them to fight even matter.
Okay. Is there a way to... Okay, so let's say in theory, right?
Mm-hmm. This is all theory.
I know. So just as an example, let's say you charge some Kroot and then you fall back from some Kroot, and then you're still like really close to that Kroot unit. So then your Space Marine unit goes in to charge like just some Pathfinders or something, some Tau Pathfinders. Sure.
Absolutely.
They overwatch you, and then you deliberately put the 2 Space Marines in your unit with the lowest performance reviews in the front to die. After your opponent does declare overwatch, you let them die. Then you can't make the charge that you did roll successfully, and then you pile back into the Kroot again.
Correct. And then you would get to fight the Kroot.
Here's a question.
Yes.
There are some stratagems that do things whenever a unit moves within a certain range of another unit.
Sure.
Out of sequence stuff. So like anytime a model is moved, let's say by some grots, they can throw a grenade and run away. But what if...
Okay, so you have two issues with this.
What?
Yes.
Oh my... Okay, yeah, but...
No, I understand where you're going, but you have 2 issues with this. Most of those stratagems are restricted to specific phases, like the movement phase. So in the fights phase, where I go to pile in or consolidate because I could be selected to fight even though I didn't move, your stratagem doesn't allow you to use that in the fight phase.
We're about to find out.
They've gotten pretty good about... I think there's like 4 stratagems in the whole game right now that say any phase.
I know.
Almost every stratagem talks about a specific phase. You can only do it during the shooting phase or the, move or charge phase or something like that.
Yeah, we're...
So that's the first issue.
Yes.
If we're talking about stratagems, that's probably the restrictive part.
Okay, so this
the
is...
other part...
Yeah, the Grots only do the conniving runts, which is under the Dread Mob detachment for anyone who cares, in the movement phase for normal, advance, and fallback.
Right. So this would be none of those things because it's a charge move. I mean, we failed to do that. It's a pile in or consolidate move. So yes. So that's the other caveat too, is that most of those things, even if we found it on an ability that wasn't restricted to a phase, most of them require that you're not engaged already, or that when they do it, it's like they call out specific moves. So pile in wouldn't be included.
Yeah, I gotta
go, your stratagem.
I gotta go back and check the Reductus Saboteur, but yes, you're right.
Yes. So in theory, yes, I see where you're going, but I don't know of anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm saying it's not likely.
Preventatively,
but in this stupid triangular chain, there might be one more link possible. Is what I'm saying.
Yes, arguably there are other links. You go to select the unit in the fight phase that failed the charge sort of successfully, and then...
Well, here's a question for you.
You could still target them with a stratagem in Tyranids that says they get a 6-inch consolidate. So now they get to go 6 inches sideways onto the objective instead of 3.
Sorry. So there's one thing I thought of. There are some things that let you pile in at a longer range.
Yes, that was what I was mentioning. There are stratagems and things like that allow you to consolidate farther.
Well, it would have to be pile in, right? Not Well, would it be consolidate? It would be pile in.
Most of them are consolidate.
There are a few. I'm thinking some stuff for Tyranids and some stuff for the speed mob with orcs, Or
Yes.
specifically, they change your pile-in to be longer, which means you could charge something that's 4 inches in front of you, I don't know how, deliberately fail after successfully charging it, and then go further distance to a different unit.
Sort of. If it's specifically pile-in, it's to the nearest enemy model. So in that case, you would end up re-engaging the thing that you successfully failed to engage in the first place, I guess.
Okay, so in that case, do you get fights first?
No, but you would have, again, you would have been selected to fight, which means you would complete your pile-in, fight, and consolidate before your opponent would get to select a unit. So you don't have fights first, I guess, but you wouldn't, you would still get to do the thing. Also, now that you mention it, is the charge bonus based upon a successful charge?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, you would have fights first.
Even though you're not started, so they couldn't interrupt it because they're not engaged with you.
Correct. Well, they wouldn't be able to interrupt regardless, is what I was saying. Because once you select a unit to fight and do this stratagem or whatever else, you've already been selected to fight. They cannot select another unit in the middle of you doing your fight phase. That's not how that works.
Oh, it's so okay. But that's really silly.
Right. They would. That is a thing that I did skip over. They would get the charge bonus because it was a successful air quotes charge. You would get to select them before your opponent would get to select any units, unless they also had a fight first unit.
Okay, I think that's a crunchy enough nugget for today.
Yes, we went deeper on that than I was intending, but again, this is a fun, goofy thing. While it is technically within the rules, there are so many choices that have to happen, not all of which you get to make. Combined with, in addition to those choices, there's positioning on the board that is you have to consider before you even know if you're going to be able to your opponent is going to Overwatch and you could successfully fail, and etc. This is so the stars aligned that it's not going to happen. But in theory, we're all playing enough games every week around the world. If we all knew about this, one guy would get to do this one day.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyway, have fun with this one, you guys.